Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Andrew's Life. I know it's been a while since I made any kind of a video, and I will be going back out here on the road and doing more driving videos. But I've been real busy. As I told you on my last video, I've been looking at houses in Alabama and in Indiana. I have made some purchases, and I have also made a sale of a house. So that's what I have been busy doing. Now, I just got done, I want to say a couple of days ago, getting everything moved in, getting the house cleaned up and all that good stuff, getting everything situated here at my new address. And I will reveal with you guys later of a little bit about the move. But for now, I mean, you know, obviously I've been active out here in the current housing market. I've been active in both the selling aspect as well as the purchasing aspect of a home. Now, I will say, and as I told you on the last video, every market is a little different. Some markets are starting to see significant slowdowns, and they've been slowing down for about a month, give or take. Other markets are still up and going and fairly competitive. Now, the two markets that I've been dipping into, which is Indiana as well as Alabama, I will say that the market in those two states are, I mean, they've slowed down a little bit, but in my opinion, they're still fairly busy. And as I told you on my last video, which I made, I want to say close to a month ago, if you're trying to sell a house and you got your house priced right, it's in a decent area, and the house is in half decent condition, you're going to most likely get at least close to what you're asking for. And if you're in the market to purchase a house and you're looking for something, that's half decent, depending on where in Indiana or Alabama that you're looking into buying a house in, that the market could be competitive, or it could be. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's gonna be easy. I'm just gonna say it's gonna be. You're gonna have to have a little bit of patience, and you're gonna have to know how to negotiate. And of course, it's going to be helpful to have an agent that's a good agent and they're seasoned and all that good stuff. So I'm going to say in the housing markets in Alabama and in Indiana, I mean, they're not as competitive as they were, let's say, a couple of months ago, but they're still fairly busy. They're still fairly active. And at this point, people still, I mean, it hasn't gotten to the point where people are giving houses away or any of that kind of stuff. Not like it was, let's say, 3 years ago. It's not like that at this point. Now, what I want to talk a little bit about is, speaking of buying houses. I mean, I just want to talk a little bit about. Uh, I'm going to talk a little bit about buying houses, and I'm going to talk. Well, first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about home inspections. Now, as many people that have any common sense will tell you, this is real estate 101. Whenever you buy a piece of real estate, I don't care if it's for your personal use, I don't care if it's for investment purposes. Always, always, always hire a home inspector. Always. And as I've told you on previous videos I made, similar to this one, never buy a house or even a piece of land sight unseen. Never do that. Take the time, drive out to or fly out to whatever area that you want to live in or you want to invest in. Look at the property in person. Drive around the area. Do a little bit of due diligence. Don't be so quick to buy something because you assume that you're going to get a deal, and if you don't act quickly, you're going to miss out. There's certain deals that aren't going to be so much of a deal. So if you think you're going to get a deal, if you act quickly, I'm here to let you know in most cases you're not going to get a deal. Because what you think is a deal, you're going to find out the hard way and the expensive way that rather than getting a deal, you may have actually got ripped off. So whenever you buy a house, I can't emphasize this enough. Hire a home inspector, and by all means, go to the property in person and look at the property in person. Me personally, I wouldn't even put any type of trust in a virtual tour, even if you do have a good realtor who's honest, because there's certain things in a, if you go to a property, if you go to a property in person, there's going to be certain things that there's going to be certain details that you're going to be able to see and recognize that even in a virtual tour you're not going to be able to see, you're not going to be able to recognize. Now, I have purchased a couple of houses within the last few months. And one thing which I want to share with you guys is just because you hire a home inspector doesn't mean that the home inspector that you hire is going to do what they're supposed to do. Now, there are a handful of home inspectors who are good home inspectors. They're honest, they're thorough, they're seasoned, and they know what they're doing. But one thing which I've encountered, the more I look at houses, the more I purchase houses, and the more that I work with home inspections, the more I realize that there's certain home inspectors like there are other contractors that basically the only way they're going to do their job is if you're there babysitting them just like a little kid. And I hate to say it, but that's just how it is sometimes. Now, on one of the properties I purchased, I had to actually get rid of a home inspector. I've always paid the money for this person to do the inspections, so I let them do what they do. And I knew, when they got done and we sat down and we discussed what the issues were, I can tell that this individual did not do what they were supposed to do. Because when I went through and I started testing stuff out for myself, there's a house that I purchased, and the kitchen sink had a leak. The toilet wasn't flushing right, and there was also a minor leak at the hot water heater. Now, all these things were minor, and I was able to get these things repaired. But the point of the matter is, if the inspector would have been doing their job, they would have caught that and documented it, and they would have told me about it. They would have pointed it out to me. So needless to say, I don't want to make this video too long. So what happened was, I got rid of that home inspector, and I let the agent know what was going on. And the seller was nice enough to extend the time in which it's going to take me to close on the property. And I went on ahead and I hired another home inspector who was a lot more thorough. And of course, this time I was in the property with the home inspector the whole time that they were there, just to make sure they did what they were supposed to do. So if you hire a home inspector, I know a lot of you, you're out of town, you're at work, and you may not have the time to babysit your home inspector. I get it. But, when you look at making the biggest purchase of your life for many of you, which is your home, or the second biggest purchase of your life, which is probably a investment property that you're going to rent out or you're going to flip or whatever the case might be, my advice to you is when it comes to a home inspector, obviously make sure that you hire a good home inspector that's thorough and seasoned and know what the hell they're doing. And another thing is, don't ever hire a home inspector that your realtor suggests to you. Don't ever do that. And if you come across a house that has recently been inspected by a home inspector already, and your realtor tells you, oh yeah, this house has already been inspected, they got the reports, you know what? Don't listen to it. I mean, if you want to look at the reports, go ahead and look at the reports, but I would still go ahead and hire your own inspector. Don't hire an inspector that your realtor points you out to, and don't believe anything that's on a report from another inspector that you did not pick yourself. And when you hire your inspector, be there at the property on inspection day. That way you can ask all the appropriate questions. That way you can make sure that person is doing what they're supposed to do, and they're not just telling you that they did stuff when they really didn't. Man, there's something else I want to say. I gotta think for a minute what that was. Oh, and also, it's also important to know how to shop around for your home inspector. Like when you go shopping for a home inspector, I mean, question number one, how long has this person been a home inspector? Now, me personally, I wouldn't want to deal with anyone that hasn't been a home inspector for at least 5 years. So for me, at least 5 years. And secondly, just kind of, ask them a few questions like, okay, what kind of work did you do before you was a home inspector? Ask this inspector if they know anything about construction. Do they know anything about plumbing? Do they know anything about electric? I mean, do they have any specialty? I mean, do they work in the building trade to where they actually built the houses? I mean, what exactly do they know about real estate? I mean, about houses, about the mechanics, other than what they may have been required to learn in order to get their license. And ask them, when they do their inspection, what specifically do they check for? I mean, what do they inspect? How do they inspect? Here's another good question. How long does it take for them to do an inspection? Let's say you have a 1,500 square foot house and you're looking for an inspector to do that house. Now, me personally, if an inspector tells me, well, typically it takes me an hour and a half to 2 hours to do the inspection, you know what? I'm going to tell that inspector in a nice professional manner to kick rocks. Because to me, if the house is 1,500 square feet and it only takes you 2 hours it only takes that individual 2 hours to inspect, 9 times out of 10, they're taking a ton of shortcuts. There's a ton of things that they're not checking, or if they're checking, they're not being thorough. They're not taking pictures like they're supposed to. There's just a ton of crap that they're probably skipping over that later on can come to bite you in your butt if you buy that property. Now, if that inspector tells me, well, you know what, typically it takes us 4 to 6 hours and we take plenty of pictures, you know what? That might be an inspector that I might go ahead and hire to inspect the house that I'm going to buy. Because if he's telling me 4 to 6 hours, which, by the way, the inspectors I typically hire, that's typically what it takes them. Because to me, if it's taking them at least 4 hours, let's say, okay, well, that tells me that A, they're doing a thorough inspection. B, they're probably taking plenty of pictures. And they're being thorough with everything. Which means if there's something wrong, they're going to most likely catch it, and then they're going to let me know. And then when it's all said and done and it's time to go to the table, I mean, when it's time for me to make a decision on whether I am about the property, and then I choose to go to the table with my decision on A, whether I'm going to buy the property, and B, whether I'm willing to pay the price agreed upon initially, or I might want to negotiate to a price that's lower. I'm going to have that piece of information. Now there was a house uh, fairly recently that I was going to buy. Now the area, it was okay. The house, I liked the house. And this individual was even willing to leave all the furniture and a few and a few things in the garage for me. That he would have left all that with the house, which I thought was nice of this particular seller. However, when I got my inspection done on this house, which by the way, I hired a thorough inspector. I've worked with this person. At this point, I done worked with this person at least once before on another property that I used to own. And it took this person, I want to say 4.5 to 5 hours to inspect a property that was 1,200 square feet, single story. Well, we sat down, we discussed everything. He told me what was wrong. He gave me we discussed it. And then later on, he emailed me a report with tons of pictures and explanations of what was wrong and what his suggestions were if I were to purchase that property moving forward. Make a long story short, I did not buy the house. I decided to move forward and buy something different. So, when buying a house, the point of this video is when buying a house, not only do you want to hire a home inspector, but you also want to hire one that's thorough and knows what they're doing and takes pride in the work they do. And they're honest. So, for those of you that are out here looking to buy a house, hopefully you got something out of this video. And I'm going to end it right here. Everybody have a blessed one.